always a little, well, it's always interesting when, something that looks like it's a sure thing kind of stumbles.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I take the International Gemological Institute, or IGI for short.
IGI. Yep.
So here's a company that is like right at the heart of this booming market for lab-grown diamonds.
Uh-huh.
And they, just recently had a successful IPO for their India arm.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah.
the stock price takes like a pretty big hit.
Mm.
Like we're talking a 10% drop in just one day not too long ago.
Oh, wow.
And, that triggered something called a lower circuit,
Oh,
which is basically kind of like a trading halt
okay.
designed to stop these really dramatic falls.
I see.
And overall, it's down by like 43% from its highest point back in January.
Oh, wow. So that's a significant drop.
Yeah, so what's the real story here? Like, what's causing this disconnect?
Well, that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
Right.
So this deep dive, it's all about this fascinating world of lab-grown diamonds and the wider diamond industry with, IGI right in the middle of it all.
Right.
And we can't forget about the strategic moves of Blackstone.
Oh, yeah, Blackstone, yeah.
Big players. But we've got some great material here,
We do.
It helps us really understand this dynamic market.
Yeah.
From the impressive growth of lab-grown diamonds to, all those high-stakes financial plays happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. And you, our listeners, you brought some really insightful sources to our attention.
Right.
And so our mission today is pretty clear.
Yeah.
We're trying to understand why this leading diamond certification company, like one that's so dominant in the lab-grown arena, is facing this kind of downturn despite the market's overall growth.
Yeah.
Like, what's really going on here? What does this tell us about how the whole diamond world is changing?
Good question.
So let's unpack all of this.
Yeah.
And maybe the best place to start is with this force that's like really reshaping the whole industry. The huge rise of lab-grown diamonds.
Yep. It's massive, right? Like it's a really significant shift. And the numbers really tell this story.
Yeah.
So between 2019 and 2023, lab-grown diamonds saw a 19% compound annual growth rate.
Wow.
That's super fast expansion.
Yeah.
And it's being driven by two main things.
Okay.
First, the cost.
Right.
Lab-grown diamonds are way more affordable
Oh, yeah, for sure.
than natural ones.
One more.
Second,
Right.
consumers are becoming a lot more aware of. And while some are concerned about, the sourcing of natural diamonds.
The ethics of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's super important to remember that chemically and optically lab-grown diamonds are identical to the ones that are mined from the earth.
We're not talking about some, cheap substitute here.
Right.
It's the same product.
Totally.
Just a different origin story.
Yeah, exactly.
And this surge in popularity, I mean, it's really having a noticeable impact on the traditional diamond market.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we're seeing big names like De Beers facing problems with unsold inventory, which is, pretty wild to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about like $2 billion worth of diamonds just sitting there at the start of 2024.
Wow.
According to what we've read.
Yeah.
And they've even had to like cut back on their production by a whole 20%.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
It just shows you how disruptive lab-grown diamonds really are.
For sure. And right in the thick of it all, we've got the IGI, the International Gemological Institute.
Yeah.
They've really become like the authority, especially when it comes to lab-grown diamonds.
Yeah.
They actually certify something like 65%
Wow.
of all lab-grown diamonds globally.
That's huge.
That's not just a big share.
Right.
That's dominance.
Total dominance.
And then enter Blackstone.
Oh, yeah. Blackstone, the investment giant.
The global investment giant.
Yeah.
Back in 2023, they acquired 100% of IGI.
Right.
For a cool $569 million.
Yeah.
Which included their operations in India, Belgium, and the Netherlands.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Just about a year later, in December 2024, Blackstone strategically listed IGI India publicly.
Oh, wow.
So they offloaded almost a quarter of their shares in that IPO.
Okay.
And they also transferred those European branches, Belgium and the Netherlands, to IGI India. This restructuring seems really important to their overall plan.
I see. So it was all very calculated.
Totally. And it seems to have worked out really well, at least at first. Blackstone got a huge Rs, 2,750 crore, which is roughly about $330 million.
Wow.
Just from selling their shares in the IPO.
Just from that.
Yeah, and get this.
Okay.
IGI India then used the money they raised to acquire those European branches.
Oh, wow. So it's like It's all connected.
It's all part of the plan.
Yeah. So Blackstone, they're not messing around.
No, not at all. So if you look at the details,
Okay.
Blackstone's initial investment was $569 million,
Okay.
which is about Rs 4,950 crore.
Uh-huh.
After the IPO, they had already made back like Rs 4,075 crore,
Oh, wow.
or about $490 million.
Yeah.
And they still hold a big chunk,
Okay.
like a 76.5% stake in the company.
So they're still major players.
Yeah, they still have a lot of influence.
I see.
This was a smart move by Blackstone
Right.
to capitalize on this growth,
Right.
make some quick money,
Right.
but still stay in control of the most profitable part of the business.
Exactly. And the sources we've got, they really emphasize where that powerhouse of IGI's revenue actually is.
Right.
A crazy 98% of their total revenue comes from India.
Yeah.
While those European operations, they were much smaller.
Much smaller. Yeah, the Netherlands had a small profit, but Belgium was actually losing money.
Oh, wow. So Blackstone really knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah, they were paying attention.
Focusing on that Indian entity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of our sources, Pushkar Singh from Tremis Capital,
Yeah.
he pointed out that those branches in Belgium and the Netherlands were probably just too small
Okay.
on their own to really attract big investors
Yeah.
in a public listing.
Right.
He also said that with Indian market valuations generally being higher than private ones,
Mm-hmm.
the IPO basically made IGI into a much more liquid asset
Okay.
for Blackstone.
I see.
So now with everything under IGI India,
Right.
Blackstone can slowly reduce their stake in the public market.
Hmm.
This IPO wasn't just about getting more money.
Right.
It was a really calculated move.
Yeah, a long game.
Absolutely. And the move to India, it wasn't just about finances.
Right.
It also made sense from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, when you look at the whole diamond industry.
Exactly. India handles a massive 90%
Wow.
of the world's diamond cutting and polishing.
So almost all of it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's been the global hub for a long time.
Right.
So when IGI moved their main headquarters to Mumbai,
Yeah.
it made things a lot more efficient.
Ah.
The global offices are now more like regional outposts.
Okay.
They keep in touch with retailers in their markets,
Okay.
and they feed that information back to the main hub in India.
I see.
Temas Printer, who's the global CEO and managing director of IGI India,
Uh-huh.
he actually said, now it has come home,
Wow.
talking about the global brand and trademarks,
Mm.
which were originally associated with IGI Belgium.
So it's like a homecoming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And our sources, they highlight how this move has really streamlined the supply chain.
Uh-huh.
So, there's a much smoother flow of information,
Right.
like about the specific needs of global retailers
Mm-hmm.
directly to the Indian vendors.
Yeah, like those in the U.S., for example?
Exactly. And then there's the fact that India has this huge pool of skilled labor
Yeah.
at a really competitive cost,
Really important.
which is, crucial for that super detailed process of diamond grading.
Oh, absolutely. Milan Churkchi from the Gem and Jewelry Skill Council of India.
Right.
He made a good point. He said that certification is a human process where someone grades the diamonds with a microscope.
It's not all automated.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah, and it's not just natural diamonds anymore, right?
Right.
India's lab-grown diamond export business is also growing like crazy.
Oh, yeah, it's booming.
Between 2018 and 2024,
Mm-hmm.
exports saw a 36% compound growth.
That's huge.
That is huge.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is the main buyer,
Uh-huh.
taking about 3/4 of all those lab-grown diamonds.
They love them.
Yeah, they do.
But the domestic market in India is also getting bigger,
Okay.
especially for engagement rings.
Interesting.
Yeah, younger couples are choosing those more affordable lab-grown solitaires.
Right.
So a 1-carat natural diamond could
Mhm.
cost you upwards of like Rs 3 lakh,
Okay.
but a lab-grown one would be around Rs 35,000.
That's a big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
That price is a game changer.
Yeah. Totally changes the game.
And the Indian government is really pushing this growth. Yeah, they've removed import duties on diamond seeds,
Right.
which are used to make lab-grown diamonds.
Okay.
And there's duty-free import for diamonds specifically for certification,
Yeah.
as long as they're exported afterwards.
Right, right.
They even gave a big grant to IIT Madras
Wow.
to support R&D
Mm.
in the lab-grown diamonds sector.
So they're really backing this.
Yeah, they want to boost local production.
Makes sense.
And the fact that they certify these lab-grown diamonds using the same 4 Cs,
Right.
cut, color, clarity, and carat,
Yeah.
as natural diamonds, it's really building consumer trust.
Right, right.
So Shaunak Shastri from International Diamond Laboratories, he said it builds parity in the consumer's mind and gives them confidence in the stone's authenticity.
Right. So you've got the government support, you've got the exports booming, the domestic market growing.
Yeah, it seems like everything's going great.
Which brings us back to, like, the big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But puzzle, if this market is doing so well and IGI is like the top dog.
Uh-huh. Especially after Blackstone's restructuring.
Right, right.
Why is IGI's stock price taking such a hit?
Yeah, what are they struggling with that the market is picking up on?
Well, we have to look a little deeper
Okay.
at how the market really works.
Right.
One thing that our sources point out is that so as the manufacturing gets better,
Right.
lab-grown diamonds are getting closer and closer to perfect.
Mm.
And there's this worry that if they get to be like totally flawless and consistent,
Yeah.
then who needs a third party to check their quality?
Interesting. Yeah, it makes you wonder what IGI would be certifying then.
Right.
If all the diamonds are basically the same.
Exactly. So maybe IGI's early success was because they could tell the difference.
Between natural and lab grown.
Yeah.
But as that difference gets smaller, because of all the new tech, they might need to offer something more than just basic verification.
Yeah, so it's almost like the better the technology gets for lab-grown diamonds, the harder it is for IGI.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of origin, there's also the potential problem of U.S. tariffs.
Oh, right. On exports from India.
Exactly.
And the U.S. is a huge buyer of those diamonds.
Huge. So any tariffs could really hurt the industry's profits. And that would, of course, affect IGI. Right, because they rely so heavily on that export market.
Exactly.
So it seems like IGI might need to shift gears.
Yeah, they're good at checking the quality of lab-grown diamonds now.
Right.
But as those diamonds get better and better, they might need to focus more on just confirming where they came from.
Okay.
If people still care about that, of course.
Right, right.
And that price difference, that's a big deal too.
Yeah, between natural and lab-grown.
Lab-grown diamonds can cost like 10% of what a natural diamond costs.
That's a massive difference.
It is. And as Milan Chochi said, in India, gold is seen as a much better investment.
Okay.
And lab-grown diamonds are more like fashion accessories. So people don't really see the need for a fancy certificate.
Especially if they're not thinking about reselling it.
Exactly. Most lab-grown diamonds don't really hold their value like that.
Right, unlike those rare natural diamonds.
Yeah, those are a different story.
So it's like this whole combination of market forces and how consumers see things. That's really putting IGI in a tough spot.
It seems like they were really smart and took advantage of that initial boom, but now the market's not so sure about them.
Yeah, and that's why we see that stock price drop.
Right, they're facing some serious questions.
Yeah, and there were some groups in India, like the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council.
GJEPC.
Right, and the Bureau of Indian Standards. They're trying to standardize the whole grading and certification process.
Yeah, specifically for lab-grown diamonds.
Okay.
Which could mean more competition for IGI.
Right, more players in the game.
Exactly.
So even though IGI is on top right now, there's no guarantee they'll stay there.
Things change fast.
They do.
Blackstone's strategy shows they know how to make money in a growing market. They get in, they get out at the right time.
Yeah.
They might have timed this perfectly.
Yeah. Smart move by Blackstone.
So to sum it all up,
yeah,
the lab-grown diamond market it's exploding.
Yeah, it's huge.
And IGI is right in the middle of it. Blackstone was clever.
Right.
They bought IGI and then listed part of it in India.
Right.
And made a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
But even with all that good news, IGI's stock price is down.
Right.
Which means the market is worried about how much those certification services will be worth.
Especially in that lab-grown segment.
Especially in India.
The biggest market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got people not really needing those certificates. You've got the technology getting better, maybe making those certificates less important.
And more competition coming in.
All of that is making people rethink IGI. But Blackstone, they made up pretty well.
Yeah. Seems like they timed it just right.
Yeah. So it leaves us with a really interesting question for you, our listener.
Yeah.
As lab-grown diamonds become more and more like the real thing, and they stay so much cheaper, what will make a piece of jewelry really precious? Will it be the diamond itself, or where it came from, or something else entirely?
Yeah.
And how will all these certificates and things change?
Yeah, what role will they play?
It's something to think about as this whole market keeps changing and evolving.
A lot to consider.
Yeah. This is a fascinating world.
For sure.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Definitely. Thanks for diving in with us.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See ya.